All right, hello everybody. It is Wednesday, August 15th. It's 1:46 p.m. This is the steering committee meeting. We spent the bulk of the meeting so far talking about other topics that are not public. Some of this around forming our code of conduct committee and getting that started. But we're going to pick this up with a discussion around the steering committee elections, and I will let Aaron and Quentin take that away.
Thanks. Can I just bosun us through the board before, and we'll start with elections and see if we can get to the other things. Okay, so screen shared, steering board, steering committee elections 2018. I'm trying to click through to the issue. So my concern is there's a copy of the steering committee election voting guide that is checked into events elections 2018 readme here. I need to minimize this screen real quick. And I think maybe this is the thing that talks about SIG leads. Eligibility, members of standing are defined by the union of all this stuff plus active members. So the thing that's bugging me about this poll request is that we also have documentation over in the steering repo. Kubernetes steering elections.md, and that doc is out of date and does not include any of the verbiage around the DevStats-based criteria for members of standing. It's also a little bit more verbose about maximal representation, vacancies, and a couple of other things. I'm of the opinion there should really only be one single source of truth for the elections processes and policies. Where should that be? Should it be in the steering repo, or should it be each year's latest election guide? Because I want to go deep on a review and make sure that the content is accurately captured, but I want to make sure it's in the right place, and then we agree that there's only one place for it to be.
Yeah, my personal feeling is that we de facto are adjusting the criteria every year based on more experience, more data available, etc. And that seems fine to me. So we publish it every year based on what we decide that year. We could also have a sort of an overarching policy which says whatever we decide to do in a given year, it must not contravene any of these, golden rules that we think should always apply.
Okay.
I'm not sure that we need to be consistent year over year or have two records of these things.
Or I think having one living document seems to make sense to me.
It would kind of be my preference to have the voting guide be the voting guide and then link to one living document. That's the authoritative thing for all of this, rather than having content copy pasted back and forth. So I think
that sounds fine. So this becomes a link to that voting guide.
Right. So I'm going to go deep on reviewing and suggesting that. Can I get somebody else from the steering committee who doesn't work at Google to do this with me? Quentin, do you want to?
Yeah, I can gladly help you with that.
Okay, thanks.
So with respect to the SIG leads and whatnot being grandfathered in, I think some of those criteria were the criteria we used last time. So maybe it got merged with the new criteria.
I think so. It certainly wasn't explicitly discussed prior to this PR, which I only saw after it had merged.
And we do, I assume we are still going to have an exceptions process. People who are engaged materially with the project and the community, but don't have an electronic record through GitHub. I would expect there are some of those people. I don't know how many of them there are.
Yeah. So
yes, and that's what the exclusion. That's what the exception process is aimed at. You're absolutely right, and I agree with you. That should be the way we deal with those.
Yeah.
Okay. So going forward, our decision is just DevStats, none of the implicit SIG lead stuff. And
DevStats plus exceptions.
DevStats plus exceptions. Sorry. Yeah. The exception process. We trust that the election committee is handling, and Quentin and I are going to make sure that we are reviewing the documents that the election committee puts through. They need to be made aware that They can't just merge things without us taking a look at that.
Well, in their defense, this was all kind of, it's pretty urgent, and they were trying to catch up on lost time, and so they moved faster than perhaps they would ideally have liked to, but they're also running out of time. So
yeah, no, I totally get that. Just to make it clear, we want to have a little bit of oversight.
Wouldn't the best way to have oversight be that all these rules end up in the steering committee repo where only we have merge access and are the owners?
Well, or at least owner's file, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. I'm gonna like make a review that says like you should really be linking to the file that's under our control.
There was actually a question from the election group asking which of the two we prefer. They had them in the community repo, and did we want them to move it to the steering committee repo? And I said I didn't feel strongly enough about it to move it, so maybe I should have moved it. I was unaware of the kind of implications of that decision.
I think it's fine. What Brian Grant is saying, which I agree with, is we just need to have owner's file that probably points to the steering committee list or a subset, and that we actually own that file.
Yes, I agree.
That's why I feel like having it in the steering repo where that is our owner's file.
Well, either way.
Yeah.
I think
repo or whatever.
Also, with respect to the active members of the community with at least 50 contributions, wasn't that as of a certain date? Didn't we decide that also?
Yes, trailing 12 months.
Yeah, but the date at which we make the measurement, I believe, is today.
Yes, it was supposed to be made before the announcement to avoid gaming.
I gave people a brief heads up by showing them the dev stats graph at the community meeting as we agreed. So it gave them a week to go emoji all the issues they want or comment on all the issues they want. And the last time we discussed this, we thought that there might be some people who might game it or some people who've made lots of trivial typo PRs, but that the sheer volume of people that this picks up will kind of override any potential bad actors.
Right.
Okay. Just walking us through the rest of the board real quickly, documenting how working groups should be formed. There's been no movement on that since 2 weeks ago. Where that stands was Brendan was supposed to open up a pull request with the contents of the Google Doc that Jace put together. If nobody picks that up in the next week, I'll get it PR'd shortly. Codifying steering committee liaisons for SIGs into SIGs YAML. That's on me. I still haven't done that in the past 2 weeks. I plan on doing that within the next week, and I'm going to start pinging people when I do so to ask if you are attending the SIG meeting for which you are a liaison, to make sure that we start getting the word out on charters. Code of Conduct Committee formation we've talked about at length, and we'll be having the first introductory meeting tomorrow. Charters meta issue. Does anybody have any progress or updates to report with respect to their charters? I can start and say that I went through and updated the top portion of this issue as best as I could prior to the community meeting last week and gave a heads up that these three had been merged and that these were under review and that we would be coming to other SIGs kind of once we had chewed through this backlog. I know the one SIG that the instrumentation, I still need to do another round of feedback. And anyway, I think Quentin unmuted first and then I saw Brian's hand up. So let's do that order.
Oh, I did not mean to unmute, sorry.
Okay, Brian.
Yeah, I don't have material progress to report, but I did review and comment on and work on TLI, cluster lifecycle, and apps and scalability. One issue with scalability is that one of the SIG leads is on paternity leave for another week. So we'll probably just wait since it's only another week. And the others, I need to get back to SIG apps. I think I need to come to a meeting or something to discuss that. I sent an email but didn't get a response from most of the SIG leads or chairs or whatever they are now. I did have a conversation with Ken about it, but I want to make sure that we loop in the other SIG leads as well. But the CLI, a second, there was a little bit of progress in that a second charter PR was sent that uses the new template.
Okay.
So,
Yay, fire engines. Okay. I mean, I didn't hear a ton of resounding feedback when I presented on this at the community meeting. We were also kind of tight for time. But let's see if we can't make some more progress on this. I know I'm definitely guilty of, I'm the bottleneck for one of these. So let's get the ball back in other SIG's courts and keep it moving.
Does anyone have any like charters that like are close to being merged and like maybe need another review or something like that? I just really like seeing the progress, and maybe if we could do every week, that'd be cool.
I would say storage, instrumentation, and CLE are the most close.
Storage, instrumentation. Okay, I'll take storage since nobody.
so
Yeah.
this,
Brendan and Quentin were signed up for that, so, but we could always use anybody.
Yeah, I think Brendan's on vacation, so
Yep.
how about I do that?
I can do it with you, Michelle. That's fine. I should have some time this week.
so do we know how up to date this list is? I went through and updated it for some of the SIGs, but it looked like many of them were out of date.
Like I said, Brian, I went through and I updated from here down to here
Okay.
prior to last week's community, right before last week's community meeting. So I haven't touched it in about a week. I will get back to touching it when I have something to change on my end. This is a real pain in the butt to keep track of. It really is. I'd like to find a better way than this, but this is what we have for now.
So do we know, can't see who's on, SIG node, how close that one is? I mean, it seemed maybe pretty close. I looked at that one as well. I was hoping to ask Derek about it, but.
You have comments that have not been responded to yet as of 9 days ago.
I'm going to drop off the call, guys. Sorry, I got to run to another one. Ciao.
See you. There's one other thing.
No, just one general thing I observed about these, the charters I looked at is there was somewhat of a gap between the things the SIG historically did and the things that align with the project and or that were being documented in the charter. Like I do want to try to avoid sort of land grabs in charters that the SIGs haven't actually materially been doing things, not to necessarily say, yeah, this SIG should definitely own that. So that's maybe something to be aware of. And then SIG apps, I think there's the biggest debate, I think, was around things in scope for SIG apps that don't strictly fall under Kubernetes scope. So that I think we're going to need to resolve. And I initiated that discussion in a couple of places, but if other people want to talk about that, we can discuss it at a future meeting or in a separate email thread or something.
It's helpful for me to be in this conversation. And
yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I think it'd be great to hear your opinions on those in an email, Brian.
Okay. Do you think I should, I started some conversation with the current SIG apps leads. Do you think I should also loop them in on that, Michelle, or just start with the steering committee?
Let's just have everybody involved.
Okay. And to some degree, it relates to my earlier thread about rationalizing working groups, which are totally irrational today. And we haven't even got to working group charters. But one SIG that's not in this list, I think, is SIG Big Data. And one of the things I've given them a heads up about is that I don't think it should be a SIG. So, and it's a SIG for historical reasons, not because it actually makes sense to be a SIG. Yeah, it's down there in the list, SIG Big Data. So I'll raise that in the same email thread.
Okay.
So we're at time here.
We are at time. So speaking of rationalizing, I kind of kicked the hornet's nest around cloud provider and other cloud provider SIGs. I didn't mean to kick that conversation off. I'm just trying to go through and get every single repo assigned to every single SIG. That's the meta thing I just wanted to talk about real quick because Jace can yell at the recording later. I don't know which issue this should fall under, but I'm going through and hitting every single repo that we manage and gradually starting to turn up automation for all of them, make sure they all have owners files, make sure they're all tracked under SIG's YAML. So I'm keeping track of it in a table here that I will keep up to date. I'm going to announce this at the community meeting. I talked about it at Contribex, just trying to push us forward on all of this. So just really trying to get all the SIGs to enumerate all their sub-projects. That's all. Any objections to me doing that?
No, that's good. I'll try to follow up on the SIGAuth one.
Okay, thanks.
I would say, Aaron, do that and see who screams.
Yeah, I did it about 6 months ago, and some people screamed, and now they've left the project. Let's see what happens this time.
Just try and communicate as much as you can, but we gotta lock this down. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
I have to go as well.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. I'll post the video.
Thank you.